There are days when that phrase, "you need to love yourself," sits heavy on your chest, like a cruel reminder. Because deep down, you look inside and find parts of yourself you'd rather hide. Old scars, words someone once threw at you, as if they were truths, stories that still burn. And then you wonder, how can anyone expect you to love yourself when a part of you is still struggling just to accept who you are? The truth is, the world taught us to feel ashamed of our shadows, to believe that anger, fear, frustration, or guilt are flaws, when in reality, they've always been signs, compasses, small alerts, trying to protect us. And maybe this not loving yourself, the one you carry like a weight, is actually the starting point for something bigger. Breathe with me. You're not alone on this path. I'm right here. This is another Headspace Talks. Let's go together. The feeling of not loving yourself often didn't come from within. It came from what you lived through, from the words that left marks, from the looks that measured you, from the comparisons that made you feel small. There are invisible causes acting inside you every day, even when you don't notice. Maybe it's the memory of a time you tried to be seen and were ignored. Maybe it's the echo of a criticism you heard too early. Maybe it's those subtle emotional wounds that seemed harmless, but gradually convinced you that something in you was not enough. A lack of self-love, before being a flaw, is a response. It's your body trying to survive what hurt. It's your mind trying to protect you from new wounds. And when you understand this, something inside you softens. Not because the pain disappears, but because it finally has a name. It finally finds comprehension. It finally finds space to be seen. And it's precisely in that space that your inner voice begins to reveal itself. The voice that speaks to you when the world is quiet. The voice that says you're not capable, not enough, not deserving. It rides the waves of old memories, feeds on unhealed wounds, grows in the silence of everything you never said. Many times, that voice isn't even yours, but you learn to carry it as if it were. Maybe it started as the voice of a demanding adult. Maybe it was the voice of someone who laughed at you when you needed support. Maybe it was the cold tone of someone who should have protected you. And when you grow up hearing those phrases, your mind learns to repeat them, like replaying a scratched record. But that echo doesn't reflect your truth. That inner criticism is not identity, it's conditioning. Transformation begins when you allow yourself to ask, whose voice is this, really? When you realize you weren't born thinking like this, but learned to, something inside you opens room for change. Because everything that was learned can be revisited, rewritten, undone, and before any deep transformation, you need something almost no one teaches you. Self-compassion, being gentle with yourself, isn't weakness or an excuse. It's emotional maturity. It's understanding. Self-compassion means looking at yourself without the lens of shame, without the weight of guilt, without that harsh comparison that has followed you for years. It's telling yourself, I did what I could with what I had. In the moment I was in, it's recognizing that yes, you made mistakes, but not because you were bad, but because you were trying to survive with the tools you knew. When you allow yourself this more human gaze, something inside you relaxes. Your chest loosens, your mind lowers its weapons. And guilt begins to lose strength. From that, the possibility of building a new relationship with yourself is born. Not a perfect one, but a real one, and that is always the first step. Because self-love doesn't appear on the day you look in the mirror and say, I love myself. It's not like that. It grows quietly through small wins. In the way you try again, in the way you take a deep breath when you want to quit, in the way you care for yourself on difficult days. Even if that care looks like getting out of bed, taking a shower, tidying up a little mess, or simply resting. Every small gesture of presence counts. Every time you choose not to abandon yourself even when tired, sad, or confused. Recognizing these small victories is essential because they are the fertile ground of self-esteem. They build you from the inside. They remind you that there is strength where you once believed there was only fragility. And when you learn to appreciate these movements, tiny, quiet, almost invisible, you begin to realize that you're growing. And in that growth, a new understanding of love and deserving begins to emerge. Many people believe love is a reward, that you only deserve it when you reach a certain standard, a certain image, a certain performance. But love isn't that. Love is soil. Love is space. Love is the right to exist with all your imperfections. You deserve love because you are human, because you feel, because you try, because you allow yourself to begin again. Deserving has nothing to do with perfection. It has everything to do with dignity, sensitivity, and humanity. And when you understand this, not loving yourself stops being a sentence and becomes a discovery. A discovery that maybe you were never treated as someone worthy, but you always were. A discovery that the things you dislike about yourself don't need to be sources of shame. They can be materials for building. They can be foundations to help you grow. And growth only becomes possible in the present. The past left deep marks, yes. It shaped the way you react, the way you protect yourself, the way you believe in what you deserve. Many of the wounds you carry weren't choices, they were impacts. But the present is the only place where you can turn that impact into direction, where you decide you won't repeat patterns that hurt you, where you realize you no longer need to live according to the eyes of others, where you discover you don't need to please to exist. The present is simple, even when it feels hard. One step, then another. One choice, then another. One breath, then another. It's the place where you begin to rebuild without needing to erase what you lived. The now is the only time where your life can truly change. And when you look at your story with this gentler, more mature gaze, you realize that some wounds turned into tools, that some pains became fuel, that some traumas, unintentionally, became your toughest teachers, but also the ones that shaped you the most. Transforming what hurt you doesn't mean romanticizing pain. It means taking the reins of your own story. It means saying, this happened to me, but it won't define me. Life will always offer you two options. You can use what you lived to shrink yourself, or you can use it to grow, and you can choose to grow. Even if it hurts at first, like a muscle that has never been exercised. Growth requires persistence, courage, patience. But each small shift builds the strongest version of you. And this is where the journey opens into something bigger. Because you don't need to love yourself right now. You need to look at yourself. You need to know yourself. You need to understand your wounds, your triggers, your fears. You need to see the humanity in what you feel. You need to understand that the things you dislike about yourself might be the very spark that fuels your next steps. Not loving yourself sometimes is simply an internal request. See me, care for me, transform me. Self-esteem is born from this process, not from magic formulas, not from ready-made phrases, not from invented ideals of perfection. It's born when you decide you deserve to be the author of your own story, not a reflection of someone else's opinion. Breathe. Acknowledge that it still hurts. But also acknowledge what has already grown from your path, your strength, and tell me, what's the first act of kindness you can offer yourself today? And of course, if you want to keep walking with me, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, at Headspace Talks, we learn together to turn pain into strength and silence into healing.